What up, YouTube? In this video, I'm going to show how I do multicolor prints using just a single extruder 3D printer. I have a CR10V3, which is a direct drive single extruder 3D printer. So I would either have to do hot filament swaps, or I would have to splice filament together in order to do multicolor 3D prints. So I do the latter. I splice filament together, and I got it down to a science that I haven't had any failed prints doing it, and it turns out pretty good. So I thought I would share that here. So I'm gearing up to do, I'm building 2 more Quest Store frames, so I'm gearing up to have the 3D prints to do that. And when I tried to pick out the color scheme for this frame, I was trying to go for like a Willy Wonka theme, and on Amazon, this color right here is labeled caramel, but it looked really dark chocolate brown, so that's why I picked that. Unfortunately, though, it doesn't really look too much different than gold. So right here is gold, and then these others are caramel. But it's the filament I have. I'm going to keep on using it. And as you can see, this battery protector and the Action 2 mount, the color scheme doesn't line up. So I have a way that I'm going to go and try to make all my prints have the color scheme line up, even though I'm going to be printing them separate. So let's show you. Okay, so what inspired me to do this on my 3D prints was Brain 3D. I was seeing his prints around, and I thought that they looked pretty cool, so I wanted to try to emulate that. So what I have decided is, for now on, I decided to set up this Canon percentage of the 3D print, what color will be what. And then theoretically, even though different prints are going to use up different filaments, as long as you use this percentage, the pattern will line up. So this is the percentage going top down that I want to do. So what I did was I imported the Action 2 mount in Cura, and in Cura it says that it's going to use 10.73 meters of filament. Now, leading up to this, when I was doing test prints, because I went on a journey of getting better TPU prints, so I did a lot of test prints on TPU. I was tracking the weight of the filament versus what Cura said the weight would be, and the scale I have only goes to grams, and gram from gram, what Cura said in actuals were correct. And in the past, I have calibrated my E-steps, so I'm pretty confident that what Cura thinks it's feeding in to the 3D printer is actually extruding. So with that being said, 10.73 meters, since I don't work with metric, is around 422 inches. It's about a little less than half an inch short of that. So what I did was I took all these percentages and I multiplied them by 422 inches, and then I rounded the numbers some just to make it easier on myself. So these are the amount of inches that I had to cut up. So 38 inches of purple, 12 and a half of gold, 12 and a half of purple, 12 and a half of brown. So as I splice together, I'm going to use this chart to splice them together. So my first piece of filament is going to be 38 inches long, and I'm going to do all my cuts with a flush cutter, just cutting them square, just like that. Okay, so I'm ready to do my first splice. I have my purple and my gold cut flush, and basically what you need to buy is this food grade silicone tube that you can get off Amazon, and a 1/16 of an inch internal diameter. Now 1/16 of an inch is a little smaller than the filament diameter. I'm running 1.75 millimeter filament, but it ends up working out pretty good. So then you just cut out just not that much, just like that, and then you put the filament in it about halfway. And you take the other side of the filament, you put it in the other half. And you kind of twist it, and you want them butted up against each other. So then I have this real nice electronics silicone mat that's heat resistant. I have my soldering iron set to 72 degrees. I have it set to 720 degrees Fahrenheit. I just have it set that because that's what I normally solder at. And then you can experiment with this, but I found with this TPU at 720 degrees Fahrenheit, I lean it up against the joint and I roll it on the mat for 15 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So that's what it looks like. I let it cool down. The outside is a bit charred from the soldering iron, but definitely let it cool down. And then what I do is I take an X-Acto knife once it's cooled down, and I just put it underneath the silicone tubing and cut the silicone tubing out, and you'll have a perfect joint. Just like that, and you'll have a perfect joint. It's nice and smooth. This one does have a little bit of a kink in it, but I don't think it's going to mess up in the extruder at all. The other methods I was seeing how to do this with the filament joiner, which I have because my buddy Tom gave me one, you had to always clean up the filament and kind of clean up the outside of it. But doing it this way, you come out with a nice smooth joint. So I'm just going to continue doing that for the rest of the pattern. And tell you the truth, what I usually do is I usually leave the silicone sleeve on, do them all, and then I go through and I cut the silicone sleeve off. Okay, I'm going to go and do another one on camera for you. So you take the silicone tubing, and sometimes what I do is instead of cutting it, I force it on as much as I can. Feel like that's good. I cut the other half. And put the piece of filament on. Push them in. You don't want no air gaps. You definitely want them butted up. And then 15 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 14, 15. And that's it. And then I go and I move on. And like I said, when I'm done with all my splices, I'll go through and cut all of them off. Okay, so I did all my joints, and the very last one, I just spliced it onto the spool of brown filament. That way, if my calculations are wrong, the only worst thing that's going to happen is that the whole end of the print will be brown. But I like doing it this way. It's not that difficult at all. It's pretty easy to do. It didn't take me that long. One thing I forgot to mention, I did mess up one joint. You shouldn't put pressure down on the silicone when you roll it in between the solder. You should just have it touching and rolling. I put too much pressure down and it kind of squished it, so I had to redo one joint. But now I'm going to go through and I'm going to just cut open all the joints, and as I spool it back onto the spool of filament. You definitely want to make sure you don't forget a joint, because if you leave the silicone on, it's going to fail the print. And sometimes this can be a little tedious. I might have to put a new, and I think I'm going to have to put a new X-Acto blade on. Get a sharper X-Acto blade. You see? That joint's perfect. And another thing I've been doing recently is I've been drying my filament before I print it. because that definitely helps a lot. Fly High FPV did a video on the difference that drying your filament makes. So definitely invest in a dryer, especially if you print a TPU and dry your filament. Okay, and here's the conclusion. I printed out two mounts using the same pattern, and it does show how repeatable it is. This pattern is. As you can see, they pretty much line up perfectly. So you can calculate what layer height you want to change it, and it's pretty accurate if you have your E-steps calculated. This is what it looks like with all the tree supports, and then this is what it looks like all cleaned up. But yeah, I thought I would just, and here's the original mount that I made when I did the test. I don't know if I like, once I realized that it was going to work, I made a much more different color changes. But I don't know which pattern I like better. This color scheme never really came out the way I wanted it to come out. But I thought I would just share this video, just show how easy it is to do multicolor prints on a single extruder 3D printer. Like I said, splicing that filament using this the food grade silicone hose makes it super simple. So, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys on the next one.